Welcome, y'all, my yarny loves. It's past time o'clock that we were crafting a better world. So let's dig into our tools and project bags to see what meaning we can find to inspire us in the work of being, becoming, and braving a better world for all. Hello, we're still in a pandemic over here. Stay home and chain. One of the first things I remember making with yarn as a kid was a chain. I think I just used my fingers at first, threading each stitch into the next, but then I learned to do it with a hook, chaining one stitch into the next stitch into the next stitch, and I would wander around the house with this trail of chain stitches behind me. It was years, decades really, before I actually learned the next step in crochet, to chain into the next row where you could actually make solid fabric. But back then I only ended up with a very long chain that when rolled up it became this very pleasing big ball of yarn. Simple pleasures. Crafting a chain is simple and only requires yarn and a crochet hook. One loop chained into another loop into another loop. To chain is to make connections, and each connection adds to the fabric, the story. My story, your story, his story, their story, her story, our story. One loop is easily unraveled. Many loops, linked, chained together, are stronger. A popular yarn construction these days is a chainette yarn, which is very similar to what I was making as a child as I wandered through my house. Of course, the chainette yarn that people use today is actually made on machines, so it's much more tightly woven and uniform. The chainette construction is arguably stronger than just plied yarn, certainly more so than a single ply yarn. Stitches and people were stronger together. Usually when we think of chains, we think of those that bind us in harmful ways, of prisons and slavery, past and present. Sadly, there are far too many to name. And we must break all the chains that bind and dehumanize us and all our human siblings. And part of how we break chains is learning as a culture about the ways that we are bonded in good ways, not bound. There are connecting loops that tether us, bind us as a human family, that can outweigh those that separate and imprison us. But much of our super predatory capitalistic culture is based on isolating us and not having us see the ways that we have mutual interest with one another. Connection. Because again, we are stronger together. I remember a drama teacher who used to use the image of an invisible thread to talk about how actors might project deep relationships that they had with other characters on the stage. And they encouraged us to think about this invisible thread, visualize it between ourselves and another character that we had tension with, in the story, and to imagine it holding strong between you, no matter where you were on the stage or on the set, no matter how far apart or how close, or even if one of you was off stage, that there was always this sense of this invisible thread or tether. They taught that imagining this invisible thread would help the actor, the performer, as well as the audience to really feel, the complex emotions that were being expressed. And it also makes me think of prophets, past and present, speaking of seeing the stranger as our family member, invisibly connected to us, even if we really have no prior connection, but connected to us like those chained stitches binding us such that any wound felt by another, by a stranger even, is a wound inflicted on me and mine. We take the time to see the invisible links between systems, between people, even between strangers, between one another, then we can truly begin to do the work needed to craft a better world for all.